Deep within the emerald embrace of an untamed jungle, a desperate young woman stumbles forward, one hand supporting her swollen belly, the other pushing aside thick vines that seem determined to block her path. Her tears have long since dried, replaced by a fierce determination that burns in her eyes. When an ancient cabin appears through the foliage like an answered prayer, she approaches cautiously, finding its wooden door hanging loosely on rusted hinges. Inside, dust-covered journals and strange tools tell the story of someone who once sought the same refuge she now desperately needs. As night falls and jungle sounds intensify around her, she opens the first journal, its pages yellowed by time. What secrets did the cabin's previous occupant leave behind? And why does she feel an inexplicable connection to their story? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Deep within the emerald embrace of an untamed jungle, a desperate young woman stumbles forward, one hand supporting her swollen belly, the other pushing aside thick vines that seem determined to block her path. Her tears have long since dried, replaced by a fierce determination that burns in her eyes. When an ancient cabin appears through the foliage like an answered prayer, she approaches cautiously, finding its wooden door hanging loosely on rusted hinges. Inside, dust-covered journals and strange tools tell the story of someone who once sought the same refuge she now desperately needs. As night falls and jungle sounds intensify around her, she opens the first journal, its pages yellowed by time. What secrets did the cabin's previous occupant leave behind? And why does she feel an inexplicable connection to their story? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Maya's fingers trembled as she lit the cabin's last remaining oil lamp. Its soft glow revealed cobwebs stretching across wooden rafters and furniture draped in yellowed sheets like forgotten ghosts. 8 months pregnant, her body ached from the day's desperate trek through the jungle. She sank onto a surprisingly sturdy chair, her breath finally slowing. The locket hanging around her neck felt heavy, the only possession she'd managed to grab during her escape. Inside, a faded photograph of her grandmother smiled back at her, the woman who'd raised her to be stronger than any circumstance. "What would you tell me now, Abuela?" Maya whispered, running her thumb across its tarnished surface. Just 3 months ago, she'd been presenting marketing strategies in a glass-walled Los Angeles office. Now she was hiding in a jungle, running from a man who'd promised her the world, but delivered only lies. Daniel had seemed perfect that first night, charming, attentive, successful. Their courtship had been a whirlwind of expensive restaurants, weekend getaways, and passionate promises. Maya closed her eyes, remembering the moment everything changed. The positive pregnancy test, Daniel's face transforming from shock to calculated joy. "We're going to be a family," he'd said, kissing her forehead. Within weeks, he'd convinced her to move into his luxury condo, to quit her demanding job. "Focus on the baby," he'd insisted. "I'll take care of everything." The controlling behavior had escalated so gradually she barely noticed. First her friends stopped visiting. Daniel found reasons to dislike them all. Then her phone began disappearing, returning with contacts mysteriously deleted. Her prenatal appointments were rescheduled to times when only his driver could take her. Maya's hand instinctively moved to protect her belly as the baby kicked. "It's okay," she whispered. "We're safe now." The memory that had finally forced her to run still made her stomach clench. She'd overheard Daniel in his study, voice ice-cold, as he spoke to someone about a shipment that had been taken care of. When she accidentally knocked over a vase, the study door had flown open. Daniel's face, always so carefully composed, had transformed into something unrecognizable. Behind him, a map displayed routes from Colombia to the United States. "You shouldn't be here, Maya," he'd said, voice terrifyingly calm. His business partner had looked at her with dead eyes, then nodded slightly to Daniel before leaving. "How much did you hear?" She'd lied, claimed she'd just arrived. But Daniel knew better. That night she'd found her passport in his safe while he showered, along with cash and a gun. By morning she was on a small charter plane bound for South America, a desperate choice to disappear where his connections might be weaker. The emergency landing had been a twist of fate, engine trouble forcing them down on a small airstrip near the jungle's edge. The pilot promised rescue in days, but when she'd spotted men in dark suits asking questions at the airstrip office, she'd fled into the dense foliage, choosing the unknown jungle over the certain danger Daniel's men represented. Now, as she explored the cabin further by lamplight, Maya noticed something glinting beneath a floorboard that didn't quite fit with the others. Kneeling awkwardly, she pried it up with trembling fingers to find a small, hollow space. Inside lay a tarnished silver locket nearly identical to her own, its chain coiled like a sleeping snake. When she carefully opened it, she found not a photograph but a tiny, hand-drawn map of the surrounding jungle with the cabin marked at its center, and several other locations circled in faded ink. "Who were you?" Maya whispered to the cabin's absent owner, turning the locket over to find initials engraved on its back. ERM. Below the hiding spot, her fingers discovered the edge of a leather-bound journal. The first page bore a simple inscription, Elena Rosa Mendez, 1973. Rain drummed against the cabin roof as Maya huddled closer to the oil lamp, Elena's journal open on her lap. Outside, the jungle had transformed from mysterious to menacing as darkness fell, strange calls echoing through the trees. The storm had arrived suddenly, much like the chaos in her own life. Day 47, Maya read aloud, her voice providing comfort in the empty cabin. The rainy season begins in earnest. The roof holds, though the eastern corner weakens. I've placed buckets there as Mateo showed me. Elena's handwriting was precise, clinical, the penmanship of someone trained to keep detailed records. Maya flipped through earlier entries, piecing together the woman's story. Dr. Elena Rosa Mendez, brilliant young physician, had fled political persecution in her homeland. Like Maya, she had been pregnant and alone when she found this cabin. A particularly loud thunderclap made Maya jump. Her hand instinctively went to her belly, feeling the baby shift in response. "We're okay," she whispered. "Just nature putting on a show." Returning to the journal, Maya discovered Elena had been a specialist in obstetrics before being forced to flee. The coincidence sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with the damp chill. What were the odds that she, 8 months pregnant, would find refuge in a cabin once occupied by a pregnant obstetrician? Setting the journal aside, Maya continued her exploration by lamplight. In a corner cupboard secured with a simple wooden latch, she discovered something that made her breath catch. A carefully preserved doctor's bag, its leather cracked but still intact. Inside, neatly organized medical instruments gleamed in the lamplight: stethoscope, surgical scissors, forceps, suturing materials. Beneath these lay packets of herbs, labeled in both Spanish and an unfamiliar language, likely indigenous. Maya's hands trembled as she examined the instruments. In her current situation, this bag represented something beyond value, the possibility of a safer birth. As a marketing executive, her medical knowledge was limited to prenatal classes and books, but Elena's journal might contain instructions. Negative influence was unnecessary stress for the baby. A loud crack of thunder jolted Maya back to the present. Rain now leaked through the roof, in the exact corner Elena had mentioned decades earlier. Maya grabbed a metal pot from the kitchen and positioned it under the steady drip, the rhythmic pinging creating an oddly soothing counterpoint to the storm. She continued exploring, discovering a trapdoor leading to a small cellar. The space was dry and cool, with shelves of preserved foods in glass jars, labels faded but legible. A rainwater collection system fed into sealed containers, providing clean water. Elena's journal had mentioned this setup, designed by someone named Mateo. Whoever had built this cabin had created not just a shelter, but a refuge. The thought provided unexpected comfort. This place had already saved one pregnant woman. Perhaps it could save another. As Maya settled on the simple bed, wrapped in musty but clean blankets, she pulled from her pocket the small brass compass that had been her father's. Before his death, when she was 5, he taught her that the needle always pointed toward home. Maya had carried it through college, job interviews, and her rise in the marketing world, a talisman connecting her to a man she barely remembered. Now, in this jungle cabin, the compass spun erratically, unable to find north through the dense foliage. Maya smiled sadly at the symbolism. Like the compass, she had lost her direction, her sense of home. "We'll find our way," she promised her unborn child, setting the compass beside Elena's journal. Tomorrow she would begin properly inventorying her resources. Tonight she would rest. Morning light filtered through vine-covered windows, casting dappled shadows across the floor. Maya had been at the cabin 2 days now, establishing a routine. Mornings for inventory, afternoons for Elena's journals, evenings for securing the cabin. Today's exploration led her to a hidden alcove behind a weathered bookshelf. Pushing it aside, she discovered what appeared to be communication equipment. Not the primitive radio she expected from the 1970s, but something more sophisticated. The device was military-grade. A heavy microphone lay disconnected beside it. Unlike the other items in the cabin, this seemed out of place, more modern, though still coated with years of dust. As Maya examined it, memories of Daniel surfaced. He'd been obsessed with surveillance and control, his condo lined with hidden cameras. When she'd found tracking software on her phone, he'd exploded, shattering it against the wall. "You're carrying my child," he'd snarled. "I need to know you're safe." Safety in Daniel's vocabulary meant control. Maya shook away the memory, focusing on the radio. If she could get it working, perhaps she could call for help, though any broadcast might lead his men straight to her. The baby kicked as Maya knelt to examine the device. "You're right," she murmured. "We should be careful." Beneath the unit, she found a locked metal box. Using a letter opener, she pried it open to reveal a Polaroid camera and a handful of developed photos. The images showed the cabin and jungle, but most striking were photos of Elena, a determined woman with intelligent eyes. In one, Elena stood beside a garden, her pregnant belly visible beneath a loose shirt. The final photograph made Maya's breath catch. An aerial shot of the cabin, perfectly concealed within the canopy. The note beneath read, "Perfect concealment from aerial surveillance. Confirms government search patterns avoid this quadrant." Elena hadn't just been hiding, she'd been hidden with expert help. Maya turned back to the radio, her pulse quickening. If Elena had maintained contact from this refuge, perhaps she could too. Then, a sharp crack outside froze her in place. Not thunder, deliberate. Like a branch breaking under human weight, she extinguished her lamp, moving to the window. Through vine-covered glass, she saw only green shadows. Still, the sensation of being watched crawled across her skin. The baby kicked again, harder this time. Maya placed a hand over her belly. "It's okay," she whispered. Though she wasn't sure who she meant to reassure, she remained still until twilight fell, listening. Eventually the jungle sounds returned, and she exhaled slowly. Maya set the Polaroid beside her father's compass, 2 relics of guidance and evidence. The camera represented proof, the compass faith. Both would help her survive. Tomorrow she would attempt to repair the radio. Tonight she would secure the cabin. At dawn, the jungle's chorus roused her. After a restless night haunted by that sound, she decided to venture beyond the clearing. If someone was watching, she needed to know how close they'd come. Using strips torn from an old bedsheet, Maya marked her path, tying the fabric to branches at regular intervals. Elena's journal mentioned doing the same until she had memorized the jungle's patterns. The morning air hung heavy with moisture, thick with the scent of vegetation and earth. Maya moved cautiously, one hand supporting her lower back, the other occasionally steadying herself against tree trunks. The extra weight of late pregnancy made her ungainly, but determination drove her forward. 20 minutes from the cabin, she discovered something unexpected. A small clearing where orderly rows of plants pushed through the jungle undergrowth. Elena's garden, now wild but still recognizable as deliberately cultivated. Some plants Maya recognized from her grandmother's remedies: aloe, ginger, various herbs. Others were unfamiliar, their purposes mysterious. At the center stood a stone structure resembling an altar, weathered by years of tropical seasons. Maya approached it curiously. Carved into the stone were symbols, spirals, geometric patterns, and what appeared to be a stylized female figure with a rounded belly. Offerings of fresh fruit and flowers suggested someone maintained this place. The realization sent a chill through her despite the humid heat. She was not alone in this part of the jungle. Beneath a loose stone on the altar, Maya found a small clay whistle shaped like a bird. Its craftsmanship was exquisite, each feather detailed despite its tiny size. When she carefully blew into it, a sound emerged that perfectly mimicked a jungle bird she'd been hearing since her arrival. Maya turned the whistle over in her palm, considering its significance. A communication device, perhaps? A way to blend human signals with natural jungle sounds. She slipped it into her pocket, an instinct telling her it might prove useful. The garden provided other gifts, medicinal plants she recognized from Elena's journal descriptions, and edible fruits hanging heavy on unpruned branches. Maya gathered what she could carry, mentally mapping the location. This discovery significantly improved her chances of self-sufficiency. As she harvested, a memory surfaced of her grandmother's tiny rooftop garden in East Los Angeles. "Plants are generous, mija," Abuela had told her while pruning a tomato plant. "They ask for little and give much, not like people." At the time, Maya had dismissed it as her grandmother's usual cryptic wisdom. Now dependent on the jungle's generosity, she understood. A rustling sound from the undergrowth startled her. Maya froze, eyes scanning for movement. Nothing appeared, but the sense of being observed intensified. Gathering her harvested plants, she began retreating toward the cabin, following her fabric markers. Halfway back, Maya spotted something that hadn't been there during her outward journey. A small woven basket hanging from a branch, marked with her fabric strip. Inside the basket, freshly caught fish wrapped in broad leaves. Someone had watched her leave the cabin, followed her to the garden, and left this offering while she was distracted. The realization was both terrifying and oddly comforting. If they meant her harm, why provide food? Back at the cabin, Maya secured the door and windows before examining her discoveries. The fish would provide protein she desperately needed. The medicinal plants could be dried and stored according to Elena's detailed instructions. But it was the clay whistle that most occupied her thoughts. Rain began falling as afternoon faded toward evening, a regular pattern in this climate. Maya used the time to continue studying Elena's journals, searching for mentions of local people. She found several references to someone named Mateo, described as a healer and friend who taught Elena about jungle plants and helped prepare the cabin for her delivery. Could Mateo or his descendants be watching her now, leaving offerings? The possibility seemed more likely than Daniel's men, who would have simply taken her by force. That night, as thunder rumbled in the distance, Maya placed the clay bird whistle on a small shelf she'd cleared for important items. It joined her father's compass, Elena's locket with the map, and the Polaroid camera, objects that connected past to present, that might guide her uncertain future. Before sleeping, Maya practiced the whistle's unique call, memorizing its pitch and rhythm. If it was indeed a communication tool, she might need it. Her hand rested protectively over her belly as the baby shifted and kicked. "We're adapting," she whispered to her child. Like Elena before us, outside the rain intensified. Inside, for the first time since her desperate flight began, Maya felt something beyond fear and survival. Something that might, with caution, be called hope. Maya awoke with a start, her heart racing. The dream had been vivid. Daniel finding the cabin, his cold smile as he told her she could never escape him. Moonlight filtered through the vine-covered windows, casting eerie shadows across the floor. The jungle outside had quieted to its nighttime rhythm, broken occasionally by distant calls of nocturnal creatures. 5 days had passed since finding the cabin. 5 days of establishing routines, reading Elena's journals, and fortifying her sanctuary. After discovering signs of local presence, Maya had reinforced the cabin's security, fashioning simple alarms using strings and shells that would rattle if disturbed. Unable to return to sleep, Maya lit a small oil lamp and continued her methodical exploration of the cabin's hidden spaces. Elena's journals mentioned several concealed storage areas, but Maya had located only 3 so far. According to the writings, there should be another behind the main fireplace. Carefully moving a heavy cooking pot, Maya felt along the stones until her fingers detected an irregularity. Pressing firmly, she heard a soft click as a small section of the fireplace wall receded. Inside the hidden compartment lay a beautifully crafted wooden chest, its surface carved with intricate symbols similar to those on the garden altar. Maya lifted the chest carefully and carried it to the table. No lock secured it, just a simple wooden latch. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded fabric, lay a leather-bound manuscript unlike Elena's practical journals. This book appeared ceremonial, its cover dyed with natural pigments in rich blues and greens, adorned with beads and small shells. Opening it revealed pages covered in 2 distinct handwritings. Elena's now familiar precise script, alternating with a bolder, more flowing hand that Maya assumed belonged to Mateo. The text switched between Spanish, English, and an indigenous language she couldn't identify. Illustrations of plants, anatomical drawings, and star charts filled the margins. This was no ordinary notebook, but a grimoire of sorts, a carefully compiled collection of medical knowledge combining Western training with indigenous wisdom. Page after page detailed treatments for everything from infection to difficult childbirth. Particular attention was given to pregnancy complications, with Elena's clinical notes supplemented by Mateo's traditional remedies. Maya's hands trembled as she turned the pages. As her due date approached, her greatest fear had been facing childbirth alone, without medical support. This manuscript represented something beyond value, a guide specifically created for her situation. One section particularly caught her attention: emergency delivery without assistance. Elena had meticulously documented steps for self-managed birth, including positions, breathing techniques, and how to handle common complications. Beside these clinical instructions, Mateo had added spiritual practices, meditations, visualizations, and prayers to various deities of birth and protection. The manuscript represented the perfect marriage of science and traditional wisdom. Maya remembered her prenatal classes in Los Angeles, how the instructor had dismissed questions about traditional birthing practices as outdated. Now, isolated in the jungle, Maya recognized the arrogance of that dismissal. Survival often depended on ancient knowledge. As she studied the manuscript, memory transported her to the first interview with Daniel's company, how his charm had immediately set alarm bells ringing, bells she had willfully ignored. His company, Green Future Developments, presented itself as environmentally conscious, while rumors circulated about forest destruction and indigenous displacement. Maya had convinced herself these were competitor smears. The irony wasn't lost on her. She had fled from a man who destroyed jungles to find refuge in one. Depending now on the very indigenous knowledge his company had dismissed as irrelevant. Maya closed the manuscript, running her hand across its textured cover. Here was evidence of a profound collaboration between 2 healing traditions, created by 2 people from vastly different backgrounds, united by common purpose. The thought provided unexpected comfort in her isolation. Returning to bed, Maya established a new routine. Each morning, she would study one section of the manuscript, practicing techniques before her strength was depleted by the day's heat. With approximately 3 weeks until her due date, time remained to prepare. Outside, the distinctive call of the bird whistle she'd found at the garden sounded 3 times. Maya froze, listening intently. The sound came from near the cabin, not from the whistle in her possession. After a moment's hesitation, she took her whistle and replied with the same pattern. Silence followed, then 2 more calls in a different rhythm. Communication established. Maya's hand rested protectively on her belly as the baby shifted. "We're not alone anymore," she whispered. Dawn approached, painting the sky visible through the window with delicate pink and gold. Maya placed the manuscript beside her other treasures, the compass, the locket, the Polaroid, the whistle, physical manifestations of hope in her uncertain world. With each discovery, the cabin transformed from mere shelter to something more profound. A legacy of survival passed from one woman to another across decades. The afternoon sun filtered through the vines covering the cabin windows, casting dappled shadows that danced across the floor as Maya worked. A week had passed since her discovery of the manuscript, a week spent dividing her time between studying birth preparations and making the cabin more livable. Today's task: clearing a small bedroom adjacent to the main living area. Years of jungle encroachment had left the room nearly inaccessible. Vines breaking through windows and a collapsed section of roof, allowing rain to damage one corner. Yet something drew Maya to this space, perhaps Elena's journal entries, mentioning it as her preparation room. Pushing aside a heavy wooden chest that blocked the doorway, Maya discovered why the room held such significance. Against the far wall stood a simple wooden cradle, its surface weathered but structure sound. Unlike the practical furnishings throughout the cabin, this piece had been crafted with extraordinary care. Delicate carvings of protective symbols adorned the headboard, similar to those in the manuscript, and at the garden altar, Maya approached it reverently, her fingers tracing the intricate patterns. A thick layer of dust suggested decades without use. Yet someone had placed the cradle on a platform of stones to protect it from the water damage that affected the surrounding floor. Carefully, she examined the craftsmanship. Not mass-produced, but hand-carved, likely by someone with deep emotional investment in its creation. The rocking mechanism still worked perfectly, silent and smooth. Inside, she found a small blanket, preserved from moisture in a tightly sealed animal skin pouch tucked. Beneath the mattress frame, the blanket, knitted from soft natural fibers in intricate patterns of green and gold, brought unexpected tears to Maya's eyes. Such hopeful preparation by a woman whose circumstances mirrored her own. Had Eleanor's child slept in this cradle? What had become of them after the final journal entries? As Maya cleaned the room, clearing debris and patching the damaged roof with materials from around the cabin, her mind drifted to the day she told Daniel about her pregnancy. They had been together only 6 months, but she'd been certain of his devotion. His initial reaction had seemed perfect, surprise giving way to joy, spinning her around his luxury condo with promises of a perfect future. Within days, he'd suggested she move in. Within weeks, he'd convinced her that her demanding marketing job would stress the baby. How skillfully he'd isolated her, each step presented as care rather than control. "I was so blind," Maya whispered to the empty room, to the child growing within her. "But I won't be blind for you." With the room cleared, Maya began restoring the cradle, using natural oils found among Elena's supplies to condition the wood. The physical labor provided welcome distraction from the constant low-grade fear that accompanied her isolation. As she worked, Maya remembered Daniel's manipulation growing more overt as her pregnancy progressed. His business associates, men with cold eyes and concealed weapons, became regular visitors. Questions about his work were deflected, then discouraged, then forbidden. Her world had contracted to the condo's walls. Her only outings carefully supervised medical appointments. The cradle's restoration complete, Maya stood back to admire her work. This simple object represented everything her child deserved: safety, care, thoughtful preparation. It stood in stark contrast to the nursery Daniel had commissioned in their lossy, Angeles home, an impersonal showcase designed more for visitors. Admiration than a child's comfort. Sound from outside interrupted her thoughts, the now familiar three-note pattern of the bird whistle. Maya had been exchanging these signals with her unseen watcher for days now, gradually establishing a rudimentary communication. 3 notes meant a delivery. Something would be left at the perimeter of the clearing. Moving cautiously to the main door, Maya peered through a gap in the wooden shutters. The clearing appeared empty, but experience had taught her that meant little. The jungle's inhabitants, human and animal, could remain perfectly concealed when they wished. Using her own whistle, Maya replied with the acknowledgement pattern she'd learned, 2 notes followed by 1. Then she watched as a small basket appeared seemingly from nowhere, placed at the edge of the clearing by hands that remained invisible. Only when the delivery was complete and another whistle signaled safe retrieval did Maya venture out. The basket contained fresh fish and fruits, but also something new. Clay jars of pigment, the same colors used on the manuscript's cover and the cradle's carvings. A gift beyond mere survival. An invitation to continue the cabin's legacy of creation and preparation. That evening, Maya began decorating the wall beside the cradle, using the pigments to paint a scene of protection and hope. With each brushstroke, the cabin transformed further from refuge to home, from Elena's past to her own future. Morning sunlight streamed through newly cleared windows as Maya doubled over, breathing deeply through the contraction. Though not yet labor, still 2 weeks from her due date, these Braxton Hicks contractions had intensified, her body rehearsing for the main event. Not yet, she murmured, rubbing her belly as the sensation passed. We need more time. 2 weeks in the cabin had transformed both the space and Maya herself. The main room now functioned efficiently. Cooking area organized, sleeping space comfortable, Elena's journals and the manuscript catalogued chronologically. The restored cradle waited in the adjoining room, surrounded by Maya's painted symbols of protection. Today's goal: prepare emergency birth supplies. Elena's journals detailed a hidden storage space beneath the east floorboards, where she had kept specialized items. Maya located the loose boards easily, revealing a small compartment lined with preserved animal skin for waterproofing. Inside lay a worn leather pouch, its surface decorated with intricate beadwork, forming a tree-like pattern. The craftsmanship suggested indigenous origin, similar to designs Maya had seen in the garden altar. She lifted it carefully, surprised by its substantial weight. Untying the leather cords that sealed it, Maya spread the contents across a clean cloth. The pouch contained an extraordinary collection of birth-related items, specially carved wooden tools for massaging pressure points, smooth stones for pain management, packets of herbs labeled in Elena's precise handwriting, and sealed containers of medicinal preparations. A folded paper fell from the bottom of the pouch, a letter in Spanish, the handwriting bold and flowing. Using her limited Spanish and context clues, Maya deciphered enough to understand it was from Mateo to Elena, written as her due date approached. He had prepared this medicine pouch according to his people's traditions, each item selected and blessed specifically for Elena's protection during childbirth. The final paragraph contained a promise: when the time comes, you will not be alone. Trust the signals we have established. Maya's eyes filled with tears. Elena had faced the same fear, giving birth in isolation, far from modern medical care. Yet she hadn't been alone after all. Would Maya receive similar assistance when her time came? The regular whistle communications suggested someone watched over the cabin. The food deliveries had become more frequent, sometimes including specific items mentioned in Elena's journals as beneficial during late pregnancy. Maya had begun leaving her own gifts in return: drawings, small carved figures she created during long evenings. Another contraction tightened across her abdomen, stronger than the last. Maya breathed through it, applying pressure to acupressure points described in the manuscript. When it passed, she continued examining the medicine pouch contents. Each herb packet included instructions. This for stalled labor, this for excessive bleeding, this for strength during pushing. Preparations far more specific than the generic pregnancy tea her Los Angeles midwife had recommended. Maya recognized some herbs from her grandmother's remedies, creating an unexpected connection between her past and present. Circumstances. The memory of Daniel's violent episode surfaced as she organized the supplies, his face transforming from controlled businessman to something feral when she accidentally witnessed his meeting with the Colombian supplier. How quickly he had shifted from protective partner to potential murderer when she became a liability rather than an asset. "I knew too much," she told her unborn child. "But knowledge is keeping us alive now." Elena's journals had begun showing increasing anxiety as her own due date approached. The final week's entries detailed intensive preparation, gathering supplies, studying the manuscript's emergency delivery instructions, preserving food for post-birth recovery when gathering would be impossible. Maya was following the same path, her marketing executive skills repurposed for survival project management. Lists, schedules, contingency plans, organizing. Birth preparations gave her purpose. Beyond mere survival, a sound outside interrupted her. Thoughts, not the usual 3-note whistle pattern, but a 5-note sequence she hadn't heard before. Maya froze, listening intently. The pattern repeated, more urgent. Moving to the window, Maya peered through the vines. The clearing appeared empty, but movement at the jungle's edge caught her eye. A flash of color, unnatural in the green landscape. Focusing, she made out a figure partially concealed behind a massive tree. A woman in a faded blue dress, her gray-streaked black hair pulled back severely. The woman raised a hand in deliberate greeting, then disappeared into the foliage before Maya could respond. Maya's heart raced. First direct human contact in weeks. Not Daniel's men. They wouldn't announce themselves so openly. Someone connected to the whistle communications and food deliveries? Perhaps to Mateo and Elena's story? That evening, Maya placed the medicine pouch beside the cradle, another piece of Elena's legacy, now incorporated into her own preparation. Outside, nightbirds called as darkness descended, their natural songs occasionally interrupted by the distinctive whistle that had become Maya's tenuous connection to an unseen community. For the first time, Maya used the whistle to initiate communication, sending out the 5-note pattern she had heard earlier. The jungle fell silent in response, expectant. Then, from much closer than ever before, came a reply. 7 notes, a new pattern, a new message. A promise of contact to come. Torrential rain hammered the cabin roof as Maya carefully arranged her supplies by lamplight. The storm had arrived suddenly that afternoon, transforming gentle paths into muddy streams and confining her indoors for the 3rd consecutive day. With her due date approaching, this forced isolation provided time for final preparations. Maya worked methodically, organizing herbs from the medicine pouch, sterilizing tools using techniques described in Elena's journals, and preparing the birth area with clean cloths. The steady drumming of rain provided rhythmic accompaniment to her labor of preparation. As evening approached, Maya took a break to read more of Elena's final journal entries. The parallels between their situations grew more striking with each page, both women alone, pregnant, hiding from danger, depending on mysterious local assistance. While returning the journal to its shelf, Maya noticed something peculiar about the cabin wall beside it. A section of wood paneling didn't quite match the surrounding area. Pressing gently revealed a small hidden compartment containing a single envelope, yellowed with age but preserved from moisture. Inside was an unfinished letter, handwritten on medical prescription paper with Dr. Elena Rosa Mendez printed at the top. Unlike Elena's journals, written in English to conceal their contents from potential searchers, this letter was in Spanish and addressed to Mi querida familia, my dear family. Maya's limited Spanish allowed her to understand portions. if you are reading this, I've found my way home with my son. If these words remain here, know that I tried with every fiber of my being to return to you. The political situation makes return impossible while Torres remains in power. His men have orders to find me after what I witnessed at the hospital. Mateo's people have shown me extraordinary kindness. They understand persecution, having suffered it for generations. My son deserves more than a life in hiding. When he is strong enough to travel, and when my evidence has reached the proper authorities, we will attempt the journey to the border. The letter ended abruptly. Unsigned, clearly meant to be completed once Elena had finalized her escape plans. Maya held it carefully, this tangible connection to a woman whose path so closely mirrored her own. Had Elena escaped? Had she and her child survived the journey? The cabin offered no clear answers. Lightning illuminated the room momentarily, followed by a thunderclap that shook the windows. In that brief flash, Maya caught sight of her reflection in a small mirror, her face thinner than before her flight, but her eyes showing a determination absent during her controlled life with Daniel. The final confrontation with him replayed in her mind, his calculated explanation as she cowered in his study. "You've seen something you shouldn't have, Maya. That complicates things." His tone discussing potential murder, identical to discussing business acquisitions. "The baby complicates things further. Otherwise, this would be simpler." His phone call, interrupted by an urgent business matter, had provided her narrow escape window, grabbing only her passport, her grandmother's locket, and cash from his carelessly opened safe. She had fled while he dealt with what he'd called a shipment problem. The memory strengthened Maya's resolve. Unlike Elena, she wouldn't need to wait for political change. Daniel's criminal activities made him vulnerable. If she could document what she knew, send evidence to authorities, Maya carefully returned Elena's letter to its hiding place. Tomorrow, she would search for additional clues about Elena's fate. Tonight, another contraction, stronger than previous ones, reminded her that her most immediate challenge approached rapidly. After the contraction passed, Maya noticed water beginning to seep through the roof in the corner where she'd made repairs after the last heavy rain. Sighing, she placed a container to catch the drips and added roof maintenance to her mental list of tasks. The storm outside intensified, wind howling through the jungle canopy. Maya secured the shutters, checking that her perimeter alarms remained intact. No whistle communications had been possible during the storm. Sound wouldn't carry through the downpour. The isolation felt more complete than ever. As she prepared for sleep, Maya placed Elena's unfinished letter on the small table beside her bed, next to her father's compass, the carved bird whistle, and the medicine pouch, physical reminders that others had faced similar challenges and found paths forward. Before extinguishing the lamp, she took a blank page from Eleanor's unused journal paper and began writing her own letter, not to family, but to her unborn child. An account of how they came to this place, the dangers they'd fled, and her promises for their future. "Whatever happens in the coming days," she wrote, "know that every choice I've made has been to protect you, to give you freedom. Like Elena before us, we will not remain in hiding forever. We will find our way to safety, to a life beyond survival." Outside, lightning split the sky, momentarily turning night to day. In that flash, something moved at the window, a human silhouette, there and gone so quickly Maya questioned whether she'd seen it at all. Fear and hope tangled in her chest as she extinguished the lamp, hand protectively covering her belly as another contraction began. The storm had passed, leaving behind a jungle dripping with moisture and vibrantly green. Maya needed fresh air after 3 days of confinement, and Elena's journals mentioned a high point nearby, offering visibility of the surrounding area. Following the crude map from Elena's locket, Maya set out, marking her path with strips of fabric. Each step required careful consideration, her advanced pregnancy making balance precarious on the slippery ground. The humidity pressed against her like a physical presence, her thin cotton dress clinging to her swollen body. Yet the freedom of movement, the symphony of birds reclaiming the jungle after the storm, lightened her spirit. The climb to the viewpoint took longer than anticipated. By the time Maya reached the rocky outcropping Elena had described, midday heat had intensified. She settled on a relatively flat stone, catching her breath before taking in the expansive view. The jungle stretched endlessly in three directions, an ocean of green swaying in the light breeze. To the east, barely visible through morning haze, lay what appeared to be a small settlement, perhaps a village or outpost, too distant to make out details. Maya squinted, wishing she had binoculars. As if in answer to her thought, her foot nudged something half-buried in mud beside the rock. Bending awkwardly, she unearthed a weathered metal case. Inside, protected by waterproof material, lay exactly what she needed, a compact but powerful spotting scope. Maya's hands trembled as she extended the tripod and aimed the scope toward the distant settlement. The image jumped into crystal clarity, not a village, but a small encampment of modern tents and equipment. Two all-terrain vehicles bore logos, partially obscured by mud, but recognizable enough to stop Maya's breath. Green Future Developments. Daniel's company, adjusting the focus, revealed four men moving around the camp, their posture and movements suggesting military training despite civilian clothes. The type of security personnel Daniel employed. One man studied a map spread across a portable table, pointing toward the general area containing Maya's cabin. They were searching methodically, and they were close. Maya's mouth went dry. The coincidence was too great. These men weren't randomly exploring. Either they had tracked her initial flight, or they had obtained information about the cabin. Perhaps Elena's sanctuary wasn't as secret as the journals suggested. Sweeping the scope across the landscape between the camp and her location revealed no immediate search parties. They hadn't spotted the cabin yet, but they were clearly homing in on this region. As she prepared to leave, movement near the encampment caught her attention. A fifth figure emerged from the largest tent, tall, confident in his movements, directing the others with familiar gestures. Daniel, Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. He hadn't delegated her capture. He had come himself. The implications chilled her despite the tropical heat. Whatever she had witnessed must be significant enough to warrant his personal attention, and to ensure no loose ends remained. Packing the scope with trembling hands, Maya began her descent, mind racing through scenarios. The cabin remained her best option. Hidden by jungle growth, equipped with supplies designed for concealment, but she needed to eliminate any trails leading to it. Halfway down the slope, a wave of dizziness forced Maya to pause, leaning against a tree trunk. The baby kicked vigorously, responding to her elevated stress hormones. "I know," she whispered. "We need to be careful now." The descent took twice as long as the climb, Maya stopping frequently to obscure her tracks, removing the fabric markers she'd placed earlier. Each step required strategic thought now, where to place her foot to leave minimal impression, which route would be least traceable. Approaching the cabin clearing, Maya froze at the sound of movement ahead. Crouching behind broad-leafed foliage, she watched as a figure emerged from the cabin door, the grey-haired woman she'd glimpsed days earlier. The woman moved with purpose, checking the cabin's exterior with practiced efficiency. At the western wall, she knelt and appeared to adjust something, perhaps one of Maya's perimeter alarms. Then, looking directly toward Maya's hiding place, she raised her hand in the same deliberate greeting as before and disappeared into the jungle in the opposite direction. Maya waited several minutes before approaching the cabin, alert for traps or ambush. Everything appeared unchanged until she reached the spot where the woman had knelt. There, partially concealed by leaves, sat a small metal box, modern, incongruous with the cabin's aged contents. Inside lay a satellite phone, batteries separate but new, and a handwritten note in English: "Signal reaches from north window only. One call. They are tracking all communications. Choose wisely." Maya's hands trembled as she carried this unexpected gift inside. A connection to the outside world, but one that came with significant risk. Using it might provide rescue or might lead Daniel straight to her location. As she assembled the phone, another contraction gripped her, stronger than the Braxton Hicks she'd experienced previously, lasting longer. When it passed, Maya checked her father's compass for the north direction and positioned herself at the corresponding window. One call. Her grandmother was gone. Friends had been systematically alienated by Daniel. Who could she trust with not only her location, but her life? The contractions were coming more regularly now. Maya's time frame for decision had just become considerably shorter. Maya's contraction subsided, leaving her breathless but clear-headed. False alarm, painful but irregular, her body practicing rather than committing to labor. Still, time was running short on multiple fronts. She stared at the satellite phone, weighing impossible options. Daniel's resources meant he could trace the call, potentially leading his team straight to the cabin. Yet without outside help, she faced giving birth alone while a search team closed in. Neither choice promised safety. As twilight approached, Maya secured the cabin, checking window latches, testing her makeshift alarms, ensuring escape routes remained clear. While barricading the back entrance, her hand encountered something tucked between the door and frame, a folded newspaper page that hadn't been there that morning. Heart racing, Maya examined it under lamplight. Not just any newspaper, today's date. A front-page story, circled in red marker, showed a photograph that stopped her breath. Daniel, being escorted in handcuffs by federal agents, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled, expression furious. The headline read, "Green Future CEO Arrested in International Drug Trafficking Investigation." Maya devoured the article, hands trembling. Federal authorities had raided Daniel's offices following evidence provided by a whistleblower within his organization. The investigation had uncovered extensive money laundering and drug smuggling operations concealed behind the company's environmental initiatives. Most importantly, the article confirmed Daniel had been denied bail, deemed a flight risk with his extensive international connections. The man she'd spotted at the encampment couldn't be Daniel. He was in federal custody. Maya sank onto a chair, mind racing. If not Daniel at the camp, who? His security team operating independently? A different threat entirely? The newspaper delivery felt deliberate. Someone wanted her to know about Daniel's arrest. As darkness fell, Maya heard the now familiar bird whistle pattern outside. 3 notes signaling delivery. After careful surveillance through a window crack, she retrieved another package from the clearing's edge. This contained a sealed envelope and a small cloth pouch. Inside the envelope, a handwritten note in careful English read, "The man at camp is not who you fear. He is Miguel, Elena's son, searching for his mother's legacy. The men with him are guardians of our lands. We have watched you follow her path. Tomorrow we will meet properly. You are safe now." The cloth pouch contained an intricately carved wooden figure, a pregnant woman with a serene expression, reminiscent of fertility statues from Maya's anthropology studies. A small stone embedded at its heart gleamed in the lamplight. Maya traced the carving's curves, processing this revelation. Elena's son, grown now, possibly in his 40s, searching for traces of his mother. The mysterious helper who'd left the newspaper and satellite phone must be connected to him. Still cautious but less fearful, Maya assembled the satellite phone, positioning at the north window as instructed. One call, no longer needed for rescue, but valuable for information. She dialed the federal investigation unit mentioned in the article. After navigating an automated system and brief hold, a woman identified herself as Agent Teresa Sanchez. "I'm calling about Daniel Harrington's arrest," Maya began, voice steadier than she expected. "I have information relevant to your investigation, and I'm someone he was pursuing." Interest sharpened the agent's tone. "Can you identify yourself?" "Maya Chen. I was his girlfriend until I witnessed a meeting with his Colombian suppliers 3 weeks ago. I've been hiding since he threatened my life." A pause, then, "Ms. Chen, we've been looking for you. A woman matching your description was reported missing by your former employer when you missed an exit interview." "Where are you now?" Somewhere safe, Maya hedged. I need to know if he's truly in custody. Confirmed in federal detention since Wednesday, Agent Sanchez replied. No bail, no contact with associates. You're not in immediate danger from him, but we'd like to take your statement. Relief weakened Maya's knees. I'll contact you again after... She glanced down at her belly. After I've handled some personal matters. Approximately 2 weeks. They arranged a secure contact protocol, and Maya disconnected, mindful of the warning about trace capabilities. Outside, night creatures chorused their jungle symphony. Maya opened the window wider, allowing fresh air to replace the cabin's staleness. For the first time since her desperate flight began, she breathed without the weight of pursuit crushing her chest. The wooden figure stood on the table beside Elena's unfinished letter. 2 women connected across decades by circumstance and resilience. Maya studied the carving's peaceful expression, wondering if she might soon reflect such serenity herself. Tomorrow would bring a meeting with people who had been watching over her, possibly including Elena's son. Questions remained. What had happened to Elena? Why had her son returned now? What was the legacy mentioned in the note? But tonight, Maya allowed herself something that had been dangerous until now: hope. Daniel was contained. Her child would not be born while fleeing a murderer. Whatever challenges tomorrow brought, they would be faced without that particular shadow. As if agreeing, the baby delivered a series of energetic kicks. Maya smiled, placing her hand over the active spot. Yes, she whispered. Things are looking up for us. A distant whistle, 7 notes in the pattern she now recognized as good night, drifted through the window. Maya returned the call with her own whistle, connection established across the darkness. Dawn brought a new sense of purpose as Maya organized the cabin for her expected visitors. No longer preparing for siege, but for meeting. She arranged the main room to accommodate multiple people, placing Elena's journals prominently. Connections between past and present. Mother and son. By mid-morning, clouds gathered on the horizon. Maya recognized the signs of an approaching storm from her weeks in the jungle. Weather moved quickly here, patterns detailed in Elena's meteorological notes, proving remarkably consistent decades later. While securing loose items outside, Maya felt the first unmistakable contraction, different from yesterday's practice rounds. This one began as a low back pressure that wrapped around her abdomen, building to a peak before gradually releasing. She breathed through it, using techniques from her prenatal classes, combined with methods described in Elena's writings. Timing the contractions revealed they came 20 minutes apart, early labor, with hours or potentially days ahead before delivery. Maya had hoped to delay until after meeting Elena's son and learning more about her mysterious helpers. The baby, it seemed, had different plans. Returning inside, Maya opened the chest containing Elena's most precious medical supplies, items too valuable to keep in the general medicine pouch. Here lay the culmination of Elena's preparation. A comprehensive birth kit, assembled from both modern medical supplies and indigenous materials. The kit was meticulously organized in a handcrafted wooden case with compartments labeled in multiple languages. One section contained sterilized medical instruments, scissors, clamps, suction bulb. Another held clean cloths, specially prepared absorption materials, and emergency suturing equipment. A third compartment contained glass vials of various solutions, their purposes noted in Elena's precise handwriting. What struck Maya most was the dual nature of the kit, Western medicine alongside traditional remedies, neither given precedence over the other. Elena had integrated her obstetrical training with knowledge gained from Mateo's people, creating something more comprehensive than either tradition alone. Maya began arranging the birth supplies according to Elena's detailed instructions, pausing periodically as contractions demanded her full attention. Though still widely spaced, their intensity suggested this was indeed the beginning of true labor. As she worked, Maya reflected on the prenatal classes she'd attended in Los Angeles, how the instructor had emphasized hospital protocols while dismissing questions about alternative approaches. Now her survival depended on exactly those alternatives. A sharp contraction interrupted her thoughts, stronger than previous ones. Maya checked her watch. 15 minutes since the last. They were intensifying and coming closer together, though still in early stages. Outside, thunder rumbled as the approaching storm gathered strength. The timing was less than ideal. Elena's journal warned about mudslides during heavy rains, potentially cutting off access to the cabin. If her helpers intended to arrive today, they would need to come before the downpour began. Maya completed her preparations, positioning cushions in the arrangement Elena had described as optimal for labor. The birth kit stood ready on a clean surface within reach of this area. Extra water had been gathered in anticipation of both the storm and the birth. Another contraction gripped her as the first raindrops began pattering on the roof. This one demanded movement. Maya found herself instinctively swaying, hands braced against the wall for support. Afterwards, she checked the time again. 12 minutes since the last. Progress was steady, but not alarmingly fast for a first birth. Still, the rapidly deteriorating weather raised concerns about assistance. The whistle communications had promised a meeting today, but the storm might prevent travel through the dense jungle as rain intensified. The distinctive bird call pattern sounded urgently from just outside the cabin, not the usual delivery signal, but a new sequence. Maya moved to the window, peering through sheets of rain to see a figure hurrying toward the door. The woman with grey-streaked hair no longer concealing her approach. Maya unbarred the door, stepping back cautiously despite yesterday's reassurances about safety. The woman entered quickly, shaking rainwater from a hand-woven poncho. Close up, Maya could see she was in her 60s, her weathered face marked with intricate tattooed lines around the eyes and chin. Despite her age, she moved with the efficiency of someone half her years. "You begin labor," she stated in accented but clear English, not a question but an observation. Her eyes took in Maya's stance, the way she supported her belly. "I am Lucia. Elena taught me midwifery. I delivered many babies since her time." Another contraction began building. Lucia nodded approvingly as Maya instinctively dropped into a squat, swaying gently. "Good position. You know this already." When the contraction passed, Lucia gestured to the birth kit Maya had prepared. "Elena's supplies. She was excellent, doctor. Combined our ways with her training," lightning flashed, thunder following almost immediately. The storm had arrived in full force, rain hammering against the roof and windows. Lucia glanced upward. "Miguel cannot come now. Storm makes river crossing dangerous. After your baby arrives, he will meet you both." Maya processed this information through the fog of early labor. "Elena's son?" Lucia nodded, unpacking supplies from her own bag, fresh herbs, additional clean cloths, a wooden cup intricately carved with birthing symbols. "He searches for his mother's work, the evidence she gathered about the hospital crimes. He believes you found this cabin for a reason, just as his mother did." Another contraction interrupted their conversation, stronger still. 10 minutes since the last. As Maya breathed through it, Lucia tied a cord across the ceiling beam, a hanging rope for Maya to grip during the later stages of labor. "We use this for generations," Lucia explained afterward. "Gravity helps baby come. Elena used this rope when Miguel was born." Outside, the storm intensified, sealing them within the cabin as effectively as any barrier. The world contracted to this space, this moment, as Maya's body continued its ancient work of bringing new life forward, guided by the hands of a woman connected to her through an unbroken chain of female knowledge. Rain lashed against the cabin as Maya's labor intensified. 4 hours had passed since Lucia's arrival, contractions now coming 6 minutes apart with mounting force. Outside, the storm had transformed the clearing into a shallow lake, water rising steadily around the cabin's elevated foundation. "Storm is blessing," Lucia remarked, helping Maya walk slowly around the room between contractions. "Keeps outsiders away during sacred time." Maya paused as another contraction began, leaning against Lucia's steady frame. The pain demanded her full concentration now, radiating from her back around to her abdomen in powerful waves. "Good, good," Lucia murmured, as Maya instinctively swayed through the contraction. "Your body knows ancient dance of birth." When it passed, Maya sank onto a cushion, exhaustion competing with determination. "Tell me about Elena," she requested, needing distraction and connection during this reprieve. Lucia nodded, checking Maya's pulse with practiced fingers. Elena came during another storm, also heavy with child. She was doctor who witnessed government officials murdering indigenous patients at City Hospital. They claimed epidemic, but was poison to take our lands. The older woman moved efficiently around the room, arranging supplies closer at hand as Maya's labor progressed. Elena documented everything, had evidence to bring government down. But they discovered her work. She barely escaped. Another contraction interrupted, more powerful than previous ones. Maya gripped the hanging rope Lucia had installed, finding relief in the upright position it allowed. Lucia pressed cool cloths against her forehead, supporting without interfering. When Maya could focus again, Lucia continued. "Matteo found her in jungle, nearly dead from exhaustion. Brought her here, old hunting cabin abandoned for years. They prepared it together for her delivery." "What happened to her?" Maya asked, the question that had haunted her since finding Elena's journals. Lucia's weathered face grew solemn. She crossed to a wooden chest Maya hadn't yet explored, secured with a complex knot rather than a conventional lock. With practiced movements, Lucia untied it and withdrew a leather-bound volume much thicker than Elena's journals. After Miguel's birth, Elena developed fever. Infection we couldn't fight, even with her medical knowledge and our traditional remedies. Before dying, she recorded everything here, her evidence about hospital murders, combined with our people's testimonies of land theft. Maya accepted the book with trembling hands. Unlike Elena's personal journals, this volume was clearly prepared for official purposes, carefully organized with medical terminology, dates, locations, names of officials. Photographs were securely attached to pages, showing hospital records, official documents, and images of patients before and after suspicious treatments. This is what Miguel searches for, Maya realized, understanding now the references to Elena's legacy, not just her son, but her work. Evidence of atrocities that might still matter decades later. "Yes," Lucia confirmed. "Elena entrusted book to Matteo, made him promise to keep Miguel safe, to hide evidence until government changed. Matteo raised Miguel alongside his own children, taught him our ways, while honoring his mother's heritage. But why hasn't Miguel found this before now? Why was it left in the cabin?" Matteo moved book many times over years, keeping it from those who still held power. Before his death last year, he returned it here, believed cabin's obscurity was safest place, told Miguel to wait for right time. Maya carefully returned the evidence book to its chest as another contraction began building. This one demanded all her focus, her body entering the more intense phase of labor. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the relative cool of the rainy day. 5 minutes now, Lucia noted when it passed. "Your baby moves down birth canal. Soon comes transition, hardest part." The next hour passed in a haze of increasingly powerful contractions. Maya moved instinctively between positions, standing with the rope, kneeling on cushions, leaning against Lucia's steady support. The elder woman's calm presence anchored her through waves of sensation that threatened to overwhelm. During one particularly intense contraction, Maya found herself doubting her strength to continue. As if reading her thoughts, Lucia pressed something into her hand, a small, smooth stone with spiral patterns carved into its surface. "Birthstone," Lucia explained, "passed through generations of women in my family. Hold during pain. Many mothers' strength lives in this stone. Now add yours." The stone fit perfectly in Maya's palm, its coolness soothing against her heated skin. Something about its solid presence helped her focus, channeling the pain rather than being consumed by it. "Elena held this stone when Miguel was born," Lucia continued. Said it connected her to all mothers who came before. Now connects you to her. Thunder crashed directly overhead as Maya entered transition, contractions coming relentlessly now. Rain drummed against the roof in rhythm with her laboring body. Through it all, the birthstone remained clutched in her hand, absorbing her sweat, her fear, her determination. "Baby comes soon," Lucia announced after checking Maya's progress. "You ready to meet him?" "Her," Maya corrected instinctively, surprising herself with the certainty. Lucia smiled. "You already know your child." "Good sign." As if in agreement, lightning illuminated the cabin, followed immediately by thunder that seemed to shake the very foundations. The storm outside matched the intensity of Maya's internal storm as her body prepared for the final stage of labor. Gripping the birthstone and hanging rope simultaneously, Maya surrendered to the ancient process that connected her to Elena, to Lucia, to countless women throughout time who had traveled this same powerful journey. "It is time," Lucia announced, examining Maya with practiced hands. "Baby is ready to meet the world." 9 hours had passed since labor began. The storm outside had reached its peak, water now seeping under the door despite their efforts to block it. Inside, Maya had reached her own crescendo, fully dilated. Body preparing for the final stage of childbirth, Lucia worked efficiently, arranging clean cloths beneath Maya, positioning supplies within reach. From her bag, she withdrew a length of finely woven fabric with intricate symbols embroidered along its edges. "Birth sash," she explained, looping it around a ceiling beam directly above where Maya knelt. "Stronger than rope for pushing phase. Many women in my village have gripped this cloth as their babies entered the world. The fabric hung like a swing, allowing Maya to pull downward during contractions, using gravity and her own strength to help the baby descend. Unlike the simple rope used earlier, this ceremonial sash was wide enough to support her weight comfortably. Its smooth fibers cool against her palms. "Elena used this when Miguel was born," Lucia said, adjusting the height perfectly for Maya's position. "All women in my family use it. Now it is yours." Maya had no time to reflect on the significance as another powerful contraction gripped her. The urge to push emerged with unstoppable force. "Good," Lucia nodded, seeing Maya's instinctive response. "Listen to your body. It knows the way." Rain pounded against the roof as Maya entered the pushing phase, each contraction now accompanied by an overwhelming pressure. She gripped the birth sash, drawing strength from its solid support. Something about its woven texture centered her focus, connecting her to an ancient lineage of women who had traversed this same territory. Between contractions, Maya gazed at the embroidered symbols, spirals, stars, stylized female figures. Lucia noticed her attention. "Each symbol tells story of birth," she explained during a brief respite. "This one," she pointed to a circular pattern, "represents life's circle. This one, a zigzag line, shows the path of difficulty and joy. My grandmother embroidered some. My mother added others. I added these stars when I became midwife." Another contraction interrupted, more powerful than any before. Maya pulled on the sash, its strength supporting her as she bore down. The sensation of her baby moving through the birth canal was overwhelming, pain and power intertwined, impossible to separate. "Baby's head is visible," Lucia announced. "Dark hair, just like yours." Maya reached down between contractions, feeling the extraordinary reality of her child's emerging head. The tactile connection transformed something abstract into visceral truth. She was bringing life into the world. Lightning flashed, illuminating the cabin in stark white light. In that flash, Maya caught a glimpse of her reflection in the small mirror, hair wild, face transformed by effort and determination. She barely recognized herself, this woman birthing a child in a jungle cabin during a tropical storm. Another contraction built quickly. Maya gripped the birth sash, its fabric somehow absorbing her anxiety while supporting her exertion. She found herself chanting wordlessly, a primal sound that synchronized with her pushing efforts. "Yes, sing to your baby," Lucia encouraged. "Let her hear your strength." Outside, the storm's intensity matched Maya's labor, wind howling, rain relentless, occasional crashes suggesting falling branches. Inside, Maya's world contracted to this singular purpose, her body working with ancient wisdom. "Head is crowning," Lucia announced. "Breathe slowly now. Let tissues stretch." Maya forced herself to pause, despite the overwhelming urge to push, allowing her body to accommodate the baby's head. The burning sensation was intense, but purposeful, a necessary opening. "Now, gentle push," Lucia directed. Maya complied, bearing down with careful pressure. The birth sash held firm as she pulled against it, providing the perfect counterbalance to her downward effort. "Head is born," Lucia exclaimed. "Rest moment while I check for cord." The brief pause allowed Maya to gather strength for the final phase. She leaned heavily on the sash, its support essential as fatigue competed with determination. "One more push for shoulders," Lucia instructed. Hands positioned to guide the baby, Maya summoned her remaining energy as the next contraction built. Gripping the sash with white-knuckled intensity, she bore down with focused power. The sensation of her child's shoulders rotating and releasing came with a rush of relief. "Reach down," Lucia urged. "Receive your daughter." With trembling hands, Maya reached between her legs as the final push delivered her baby into the world. Lucia guided the slippery, squirming newborn up to Maya's chest. Time stopped as Maya beheld her daughter's face for the first time. Tiny features scrunched in the effort of her own journey, dark hair plastered to her perfect skull. For an eternal moment, mother and child regarded each other, new souls meeting in ancient recognition. Then the baby took her first breath and released a powerful cry that rivaled the storm's intensity. The sound broke Maya's trance, joy surging through her exhaustion. "She is strong," Lucia noted approvingly, draping warm cloths over the newborn. "Born in storm, she will have storm's power." Outside, as if responding to the baby's first cry, lightning struck somewhere very close. The brilliant flash was followed immediately by thunder that shook the cabin's foundations. In that same instant, the rain abruptly diminished, the storm's fury suddenly spent. Maya barely noticed the changing weather, her world now reduced to the miraculous weight of her daughter against her skin. Still kneeling, supported by the birth sash that had helped bring her child into the world, she whispered a name she hadn't known she'd chosen until this moment: Elena. The first hours after birth passed in a blur of primal instinct and wonder. Maya delivered the placenta with Lucia's expert guidance, then watched in exhausted fascination as the elder woman performed a brief examination of newborn Elena. "Perfect," Lucia pronounced, wrapping the baby in clean cloths. Strong lungs, good color, alert eyes. Outside, the storm had diminished to gentle rain, a soothing rhythm on the cabin roof. Inside, the atmosphere held the charged reverence that follows great transformation. Maya reclined against cushions arranged by Lucia, her daughter nestled against her chest, tiny mouth already rooting instinctively for nourishment. "Your milk will come soon," Lucia assured her, preparing a warm herbal drink. "This tea helps bring it down." As Maya sipped the slightly bitter liquid, Lucia busied herself cleaning the birth area, her movements efficient and respectful. From her bag, she withdrew a smooth wooden bowl carved from rich reddish wood, its surface polished by generations of handling. Inside nestled smaller items, a tiny silver bell, a bundle of dried herbs, a small knife with bone handle, and a vial of clear liquid. "Blessing ceremony," Lucia explained, arranging these items beside Maya, "for welcoming baby to world. Elena asked for this when Miguel was born." Despite her exhaustion, Maya felt drawn to this ritual connection to Elena's experience. "What do we do?" "First you rest," Lucia smiled. "Ceremony happens at sunrise. Now you and baby need sleep." Maya couldn't argue. The profound fatigue of birth settled into her bones as the adrenaline subsided. With Lucia's help, she mastered baby Elena's first nursing session, marveling at the tiny perfection of fingers wrapped around her own. the alert dark eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom despite being hours old. Sleep came in brief intervals between nursing and Lucia's gentle checkups. Maya drifted through dreams filled with women's voices. Her grandmother, Elena, others she couldn't identify but somehow knew, all speaking words of guidance and welcome to her daughter. She awoke to soft, morning light filtering through the window and the scent of something sweet burning. Lucia had placed the wooden bowl on a small table, now positioned at the foot of Maya's makeshift bed. Inside, the herbs smoldered, releasing aromatic smoke that spiraled toward the ceiling. "You ready?" Lucia asked, seeing Maya awake. "Sun rises soon." Maya nodded, sitting up carefully, baby Elena still sleeping peacefully in her arms. The birth had left her sore but remarkably intact. Lucia's guidance and Elena's preparations had resulted in minimal tearing. Lucia gently took the sleeping infant, placing her in the wooden bowl, not directly on the smoldering herbs, but on a soft cloth above them, so the aromatic smoke gently wafted around her tiny form. Elena stirred, but didn't cry, her expression almost curious as Lucia began speaking in her indigenous language. The words were unfamiliar to Maya, but their cadence carried clear meaning: welcome, protection, blessing. Lucia rang the silver bell 3 times, its clear tone resonating through the cabin. Then she dipped her finger in the vial of liquid, water, Maya realized, and traced a spiral pattern on baby Elena's forehead. "Water from sacred spring," Lucia explained, switching to English. "Same water blessed Miguel and many children before." She handed the bowl to Maya. Now mother's words. Maya hadn't prepared anything, but as she gazed at her daughter nestled in this ceremonial bowl, words rose naturally from some deep, instinctual place. "Elena," she began, her voice stronger than expected, "you are named for a brave woman who sheltered in this place before us. May you carry her courage. May you know that you were born in strength, surrounded by the wisdom of women who came before you." Tears flowed freely as she continued. "I promise to protect you, to teach you, to help you grow into whoever you're meant to become." Lucia nodded approval, then gestured for Maya to lift her daughter from the bowl. As Maya did so, Lucia sprinkled something into the smoldering herbs that caused them to flare briefly, sending a final surge of fragrant smoke upward. "Blessing complete," she announced. "Now she is welcomed properly." The ceremony's simplicity held profound impact, an acknowledgement of transition, of new life entering an ancient world. Maya felt simultaneously humble and powerful, part of something that transcended her individual experience. As sunrise fully illuminated the cabin, Lucia prepared a nourishing breakfast from supplies she'd brought and herbs from Elena's garden. Maya ate ravenously, her body demanding replenishment after its monumental work. "Miguel will come today," Lucia mentioned while cleaning the blessing bowl. "Storm has passed. River crossing possible now." Maya glanced down at her daughter, now nursing contentedly. "He's been searching for his mother's evidence book?" "The one you showed me?" Lucia nodded. "Many years. Government changed, but some powerful people from old days still hold positions. Evidence could bring justice for many families. Elena's work not finished, and now he'll find it," Maya mused. "Because I happened to stumble on this cabin." "Not happen," Lucia corrected firmly. "Meant cabin chooses who finds it." The notion seemed mystical, yet somehow right. Maya had fled blindly into the jungle, yet found exactly what she needed: shelter, knowledge, connection, and ultimately assistance for her daughter's birth. As if understanding she was being discussed, baby Elena detached from nursing and gazed up at her mother with dark, alert eyes. Something in that gaze, focused, seemingly knowing, reminded Maya of the photographs she'd seen of the original Elena. Perhaps Lucia was right about more than just the cabin's choosing. "When Miguel comes," Maya decided, "I want to learn the full story. About Elena, about her work, about what happened after." Lucia smiled approvingly as she returned the blessing bowl to her bag. Stories must continue. Like life, like birth, always continuing. 3 days after Elena's birth, the jungle had dried enough for safe travel. Maya sat on the cabin's porch, her daughter sleeping peacefully against her chest in a sling Lucia had woven from soft, natural fibers. The morning air carried the fresh scent of vegetation, reviving after the storm. Birds reclaiming their territories with enthusiastic calls. Lucia had stepped away to gather fresh medicinal plants, promising to return before Miguel arrived. These 3 days of recovery had created a bond between the women that transcended their different backgrounds, united by shared female experience and the intimate knowledge that comes from guiding and witnessing birth. Maya's attention caught on movement at the jungle's edge. A tall figure emerged from the foliage, followed by 2 others. The lead man approached slowly, his manner respectful rather than threatening. In his early 40s, with Elena's high cheekbones and determined jaw clearly visible despite his beard, there was no mistaking his identity. "Miguel," Maya said softly as he reached the porch steps. He nodded, eyes moving from Maya to the bundle against her chest. Emotion crossed his features, recognition of his mother's legacy continuing in this unexpected way. "You found her cabin," he said simply, his accented English precise and educated. "And she helped you, as she helped others. She saved us," Maya acknowledged, gesturing for him to join her on the porch, while his companions remained respectfully at a distance. Miguel sat carefully beside her, movements measured as if afraid to disturb the sleeping infant. From his pocket, he withdrew a small wooden box, its surface carved with the same symbols that adorned the cabin's cradle and Elena's journals. "I brought this for you," he said, opening the hinged lid to reveal 2 pendants nestled on soft fabric. Each featured a carved stone suspended on leather cord, one weathered with age, the other newly created but matching in design. The older one was my mother's. Mateo gave it to her when she arrived, pregnant and afraid. It symbolizes protection for mother and child. Maya's free hand hovered over the pendants, touched by the offering's significance. "The new one is for you and your daughter," Miguel continued. "Mateo's grandchildren carved it when we learned you had found the cabin. They believe, as I do, that my mother's spirit guided you here." "I don't know about spirits," Maya admitted, "but finding this place exactly when I needed it seems beyond coincidence." Miguel nodded, understanding. "My mother was a scientist, trained to believe in evidence and logic. Yet her journals speak of connections she couldn't explain. How Mateo found her just before she collapsed from exhaustion. How the cabin contained exactly what she needed for delivery." He glanced at baby Elena. "May I ask her name?" "Elena," Maya said softly. It seemed right. A smile transformed Miguel's serious expression. "My mother would be honored." He gestured to the pendants. "May I?" At Maya's nod, he carefully lifted the newer pendant and placed it around her neck, the carved stone settling just above where baby Elena slept. "Protection," he repeated. "Though I believe you have already proven yourself quite capable." Maya touched the pendant, its smooth surface cool against her fingers. "Lucia showed me the evidence book. She told me what your mother witnessed, why she was hiding." Miguel's expression grew solemn again. "That evidence is why I've searched for this cabin for years. After Mateo died, all I knew was that he had hidden my mother's documentation somewhere in this region. We've been systematically exploring, hampered by limited resources and the jungle's challenges. And now?" Maya asked. "Now the evidence may finally serve its purpose. The current government has established a truth commission investigating historical abuses against indigenous communities. My mother's documentation could provide crucial evidence for cases thought unprovable. Justice, after all these years," Maya mused. "Elena would be satisfied." "Yes," Miguel agreed. "And you? What will you do now that your daughter has arrived and your pursuer is imprisoned?" Maya looked out at the jungle that had initially seemed so threatening, but now felt almost protective. "I need to give my statement to the federal investigators about Daniel's operations. Beyond that," she glanced down at her sleeping daughter, "I haven't thought much past survival until now. You have options, Miguel assured her. My organization helps indigenous communities defend their land rights. We have connections in the city, safe houses where you could stay until you decide your path, or... He hesitated. Lucia mentioned you have skills in organization and communication. Such abilities are greatly needed in our work. The suggestion planted unexpected seeds in Maya's mind, possibilities beyond her previous corporate life, beyond mere escape and survival. First, I need to regain my strength, she said, gesturing to her still recovering body. And I'd like to hear more about your mother, what happened after the journal's end, how Mateo raised you. Miguel nodded, understanding her need to complete Elena's story before beginning her own next chapter. He reached into his shirt and pulled out his own pendant, identical to the weathered one in the box. Mateo made two from the same stone, he explained. One for my mother, one for me. He believed they would be reunited someday. He gazed thoughtfully at baby Elena. Perhaps in an unexpected way, they have been. The infant stirred, small face scrunching briefly before settling back to sleep. Above them, birds called in complex patterns, similar to the whistle communications that had guided Maya through her weeks in the jungle. The wilderness that had once seemed a place of desperate refuge now felt increasingly like a place of potential and connection. 2 weeks after Elena's birth, Maya sat at the cabin's table, pen moving steadily across the page of a leather-bound journal. Sunlight streamed through windows now cleared of vines, illuminating the transformed space. What had once been a desperate refuge now functioned as a comfortable home, with Elena's cradle positioned near the restored fireplace, and Maya's belongings arranged with purpose rather than panic. The journal, a gift from Miguel, featured handmade paper bound in supple leather dyed the same rich blue as the jungle flowers surrounding the cabin. Unlike Elena's clinical documentation or desperate testimony, Maya's entries blended practical observations with reflections on motherhood and her evolving understanding of herself. Today you smiled for the first time, she wrote, glancing at Elena sleeping peacefully nearby. Not gas or reflexes as the books would claim, but recognition. You know me now as I know you. We are learning each other daily. Maya paused, listening to the familiar sounds of the jungle, birds calling, insects humming, occasional rustling in the underbrush. What had once signaled danger now provided comforting rhythm to her days. Lucia visited regularly, bringing supplies and checking on Elena's development with grandmother-like devotion. Miguel coordinated trips to the village clinic, where Maya had begun volunteering her organizational skills 2 days a week. Life was taking unexpected shape around her, different from anything she'd imagined during her corporate existence in Los Angeles or her weeks of terrified hiding. This new reality centered on connection rather than achievement, on community rather than competition. The journal represented this transition, a deliberate chronicle for Elena's future understanding. Unlike her own childhood, where family history remained fragmented and mysterious, Maya was creating a continuous narrative for her daughter. Each entry documented not only daily events, but the emotional landscape of becoming a mother in extraordinary circumstances. She continued writing. Miguel shared more about his mother today, how her medical skills saved many in the indigenous community after she recovered from your birth. Though she never returned to formal practice, she created a legacy of healing that continues through the clinic. Perhaps that's how purpose finds us, not through grand plans, but through responding to the needs directly before us. Maya recorded Miguel's stories faithfully, connecting them to her own evolving path. The federal investigators had taken her statement remotely, the satellite phone proving useful after all. Daniel remained in custody, his extensive criminal network unraveling as associates turned against him. Her former life felt increasingly distant, a chapter closing naturally rather than being forcibly abandoned. A soft cry from the cradle signaled Elena's awakening. Maya closed the journal, securing its leather tie before attending to her daughter. As she lifted the infant, now gaining healthy weight and showing increasing alertness, Maya caught sight of their reflection in the small mirror, mother and daughter framed by the cabin that had sheltered them both. "We have choices now," she told Elena as she settled for nursing. Something I couldn't imagine when we arrived here. Those choices had crystallized during the past weeks. Miguel's organization needed someone to coordinate communications between indigenous communities, fighting land appropriation. Maya's marketing background, repurposed for meaningful advocacy, matched their needs perfectly. The village nearby had simple housing available, close enough to the clinic for Lucia's continued support. With Elena, the position offered modest compensation but rich purpose, using her professional skills not to sell products but to protect people and places that mattered. The contrast with her former role at a company that had actively harmed these same communities wasn't lost on her. Maya added a final entry to today's journal page. Writing one-handed while Eleanor nursed, "I came to this jungle fleeing death, certain I was leaving civilization behind. Instead, I found a different kind of civilization, one built on mutual support rather than exploitation. I don't yet know if this is our permanent home, but it's where we need to be now. Where your name connects to history, where my skills serve something larger than profit margins." She signed the entry with the date, then closed the journal and set it on the shelf beside Elena's journals, a visual continuation of legacy, woman to woman, mother to mother. Each evening before sleep, Maya read selections from Eleanor's writings, finding new insights now that she'd experienced motherhood herself. As twilight approached, Maya wrapped Elena in a light blanket and stepped onto the porch. The pendant Miguel had given her rested cool against her skin, a constant reminder of connection. From the jungle edge came the now familiar bird whistle that had once been mysterious communication, but was now Lucia's cheerful announcement of her approach. Maya lifted her own whistle from its hook by the door and returned the greeting, her fingers now confident with the sequence. Elena stirred at the sound, dark eyes opening with that same alert, knowing expression Maya had noticed at birth. "Another visitor," Maya told her daughter as Lucia emerged from the foliage. Basket of fresh vegetables and fruits balanced expertly on her head. Our jungle family growing larger by the day, the concept would have seemed absurd during her former life, where family had been reduced to occasional calls with distant cousins. Now it encompassed Lucia's grandmotherly wisdom, Miguel's earnest dedication, and the wider community that had initially watched from hiding, but now included Maya and Elena in their protective circle. The journal waited on its shelf, ready to record this evolving story, a legacy of words Maya was creating for her daughter, just as Elena had left her knowledge for those who would find her cabin in times of need. 1 year later, Maya stood in the cabin's doorway, watching her daughter take wobbly steps across the porch. Elena, now walking with determined concentration, headed toward Lucia, who knelt with open arms at the steps. The afternoon sun filtered through jungle canopy, casting dappled light across the scene. "She grows stronger each day," Lucia observed as Elena reached her. Tiny hands gripping the elder woman's weathered fingers for balance. Maya nodded, pride mingling with wonder at how much had changed in 12 months. The cabin remained their sanctuary, though they now split time between here and a small house in the nearby village. Maya's work with Miguel's organization had expanded, her marketing skills repurposed to bring international attention to the indigenous land rights cases now moving through courts with the help of Elena's evidence. Daniel's trial had concluded 3 months earlier with a substantial prison sentence. Maya had provided video testimony, facing her former partner through a screen rather than in person. Seeing him in prison garb, his confident facade cracked by confinement, had provided unexpected closure. The man who had once dominated her thoughts now seemed diminished. Irrelevant to the life she had built, Miguel approached from the jungle path, his usual serious expression lifting at the sight of his namesake toddling on the porch. He carried a leather document case, its formal appearance incongruous with the natural setting. "The papers are finalized," he announced, joining them on the porch, while Elena examined a colorful beetle with fascination. "The cabin and surrounding 5 acres now legally belong to you." Maya accepted the document case, running her fingers over its smooth surface. Inside lay the official deed, transferring ownership of Elena's sanctuary to her, a transfer Miguel had insisted upon. Despite Maya's initial reluctance, "My mother would want this," he had explained when first proposing the idea. "The cabin protected you both when you needed it most. Now you can protect it in return." The deed represented more than property ownership. It symbolized Maya's transition from desperate refugee to guardian of legacy, from someone seeking safety to someone providing it. The cabin that had once sheltered Elena would remain available to others in need, its location known only to those who could be trusted with its secret. "We should celebrate," Lucia declared, lifting Elena into her arms. "I will prepare a special meal tonight." As Lucia carried Elena inside to begin cooking, Miguel lingered on the porch with Maya, his expression thoughtful as he gazed at the cabin he had searched for over many years. "The Truth Commission reviews the hospital cases next month," he said. "My mother's evidence will finally serve its purpose. Justice comes slowly, but it comes." Maya nodded, thinking of the parallels between Elena's documentation of hospital murders and her own testimony against Daniel. Different circumstances, different decades, but similar courage. Women refusing to remain silent despite dangerous consequences. "Your mother would be proud," she told Miguel, "not just of the cases but of you, continuing her work in your own way." The deed felt substantial in her hands, its official seals and signatures transforming informal sanctuary to legal trust. Maya had already decided that the cabin would remain what it had always been, a hidden refuge for those in desperate circumstances, particularly women in need. The official ownership simply gave her the authority to ensure its protection. From inside came the sounds of Lucia singing a traditional lullaby to Elena, who had likely grown tired from her walking practice. The melody drifted through the open windows, mingling with jungle bird calls in natural harmony. "Will you stay here permanently?" Miguel asked, the question he had carefully avoided during the past year. Maya considered before answering. "This is Elena's heritage now, both from your mother and from her own birth. We'll always keep one foot here, even if opportunities take us elsewhere temporarily." Her response satisfied him. Miguel had become protective of both Maya and her daughter, though their relationship remained one of friendship and shared purpose rather than romance. His dedication to his mother's legacy and to his community's future left little space for personal attachments, a choice Maya respected. As evening approached, more visitors arrived from the village, families who had gradually accepted Maya and Elena into their community. Children played in the clearing, while adults prepared for the celebration meal. What had once been a place of isolation had transformed into a gathering spot, the cabin's energy shifting from desperate hiding to communal sharing. Later, as stars emerged above the jungle canopy, Maya stood at the edge of the clearing, Elena sleeping securely against her chest. The pendant Miguel had given her caught the firelight as she surveyed the scene, Lucia directing the meal preparation, Miguel discussing legal strategies with community elders, children chasing fireflies in elaborate games. The deed to the cabin lay safely inside, tucked beside the journals, the compass, the whistle, and other artifacts of her journey. Together, these objects told a story of transformation, from corporate executive to fugitive to mother to advocate. Each identity built upon rather than replaced the others, creating a woman Maya was still coming to know. Elena stirred briefly, small hand clutching her mother's pendant before settling back to sleep. Above them, the stars reflected patterns similar to those carved into the cabin's cradle and painted on its walls, ancient symbols of protection and continuity that now held personal meaning. Maya whispered to her sleeping daughter, Words meant for her alone. We found our true north, little one. Not on any map, but in the courage to begin again.